will be now read a second time, and I call the honourable member for Perth.
Thank you. As we were saying, that Labor has been an enthusiastic supporter of this proposal for an infrastructure bank, that we see the need for us to have in place good multilateral arrangements that will facilitate development in our region. We are very, very mindful of the need for investment across our region in order to allow many people to reach economic fulfilment, and we totally appreciate that this will be a great positive for the region. And we're also very mindful that we want to support China when it is working to take a leadership role. It is now the second largest economy in the world, and of course it will want to have a leading place in the architecture, in the political and diplomatic architecture of the region. And I think the leadership that they've shown on this matter is fantastic. And as I said, Labor certainly needed no persuading that we should get in behind this project. But I do want to comment. I note that lots of the speakers from the other side have been focusing on ChAFTA and claiming that we are trying to whip up some xenophobic reaction within the community, and I can tell you it is the exact opposite. Our whole instinct is to want to support the China Free Trade Agreement. Under the leadership of Senator Penny Wong, we have been enthusiastic embracers of moving down the trade barriers and integrating our economies more closely with those of our Asian neighbours. So there is actually totally no desire for us to undermine a free trade agreement. However, we cannot stand by and allow what is proposed to happen under this agreement. And we do not believe that the government has been honest with the Australian people about how this arrangement will operate. They have tried to hide behind the banner of xenophobia to actually go in and discuss some of the detail that is creating the concern out there in the community. Now, why are the unions concerned? Why are the union movement concerned? It is true they are concerned. It is true that they are running a program about it, but it is because they are deeply concerned about what the implication of this is for Australian jobs. And no amount of bleating and jumping up and down should replace the cool, calm and honest analysis of this agreement. Now, I know that the government often will recite, and I note indeed one of our Labor's former luminary notes clause 2E, and it says that, and this is talking about clause 2E of the Memorandum of Understanding on Trade of Investment Facilitation Agreements. And this is the provision that is often quoted. It says, the project company agrees to comply with all Australian laws and regulations, including application of Australian workplace law, work safety law and relevant Australian licensing, regulation and certification standards. Now, of course, if that's all you read, you'd say, yeah, well, that's fine. But of course, that's not all there is. And that's what we're asking. That's what we're asking there to be some honesty about. Now let's go and perhaps just look in a little more detail about how this operates. So we've got the agreement, we've got the agreement proper, and we have got a provision at the side that relates to these infrastructure facilitation agreements. So there's a special MOU, on investment facilitation arrangements. Now, we've read the clause, which makes it all sound like it's going to be good, But then we've got clause 4, and it outlines that areas that could be negotiated include. So they go on at clause 4 and says that there are certain things that you can. There are areas which will be subject to negotiation, and these include the occupations covered by the IFA agreement, English language proficiency requirements, and qualification and experience requirements, and calculation of terms and conditions of the temporary skilled migration income threshold. So it is expressly opening up the opportunity for the project companies to request concessions in relation to any of those issues, and one of those issues is quite clearly the terms and the income and terms and conditions of employment. We then go to clause 8 of this Memorandum of Understanding, and it quite clearly indicates that labour market testing is optional for IFAs. And it says, and I'll read this, once the IFA is executed, direct employees on an eligible project can seek the employer endorsement of the project company to enter into a labour agreement under the IFA with DIPBP to sponsor or nominate temporary skilled workers to be engaged on the project. A labour agreement will be entered into in a timely manner and will set out the number, occupations, terms and conditions under which a temporary skilled workers can be nominated consistent with the terms of the IFA and the sponsorship obligations associated with the labour agreement, including any requirements for labour market testing. So quite clearly, labour market testing is at play. Labour market testing is at play. There may not be any requirement for labour market testing. Now, if the government is sincere, if the government is truly of the view that we have misread this agreement, that the natural and plain words of the agreement don't mean what they do, well, we ask them, let's put this into some legislation. Let's, in the legislation, put this beyond doubt so that these very real concerns that emanate from actually a close reading, not just of the agreement, but of the associated, the side letters, the memorandums of understanding. And there are people on the other side of the House that are capable of reading these documents and making an interpretation of them. And that's our point. We want to support this free trade agreement. We do actually want to see our economies grow together. But we cannot stand by idly and allow there to be this provision that will see there being quite conceivably, in relation to these large projects, an abandonment of the principles of labour market testing and all sorts of concessional arrangements entered into around the skills of the persons coming in and around the terms and conditions. I mean, the whole Australian story, what we have been able to achieve in this country has been built upon there being the availability of good, well-paying jobs within this country, that Labor has been, Labor with a small L, has been able to negotiate a situation, an architecture, an industrial relations architecture that ensures that working people are paid a decent wage. We are not going to stand back and let the essence of that Australian experience be compromised by this abandonment of these principles. And it is in the fine print, and it is complex, and there is a number of documents that have to be read together. But I actually congratulate the union movement. I congratulate them for the attention to detail that they have paid, that they have been able to analyse this document closely and see the future pitfalls. And the response from the Prime Minister, you know, along the lines, it'll never happen, I mean, that's simply not good enough. These the need for us to be able to protect the jobs of Australian people, to ensure that we have, that of the jobs that are available in this country, that the Australian workforce, and can I tell you this, my electorate is 46% born overseas, and they share this concern. They share. This is not a concern just of Anglo-Celtic Australians or Italian Australians or Greek Australians. This is a concern shared right across the board because people actually get it. They get that the ability for us to have an industrial relations architecture that protects wages and economy, that gives Labor a fair bargaining power, is the very thing that has created the circumstances wherein they can build a better life. These are people coming from India, people coming from Vietnam, people coming from China. They are concerned about this. This is not anything to do with xenophobia. This is about getting across the detail of this legislation, and I think that the Prime Minister is paying the people of Australia a profound disrespect with the two options. You're either with us or against us, and refusing to get down and examine these legitimate concerns that are being raised by the union movement, by AFDNet and by this side of the House. We want to work with you on this, but these are issues that do need to be addressed. Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker.
I thank the honourable